Medicare with no out-of-pocket cost to you. It's your decision and only your decision on what healthcare agency you use. Call today. All County Home Health Care, Inc. at 954-717-7027. License 200999096. The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Amp2.tv presents You and Your Doctor, teaching you to live a longer and healthier life. Proudly sponsored by All County Healthcare, where people are the heart of our business. All County Healthcare is a Medicare certified agency where one call will service all your home care health needs. For more information, call 954-717-7027 or visit our website, allcountyhealthcare.com. Now, let's get informed to living a longer and healthier life. Here is your host for today's show.
Hello, South Florida, and welcome, South Florida and beyond, I should say, to the You and Your Doctor show, living a longer and healthier life. Tonight, we are going to talk about internal medicine, and we have a doctor from Good Samaritan Medical Center who took the time to drive here to Boca Raton, where our studio is located, and talked with us about internal medicine, so I'm very happy about that. Thanks to All County Healthcare Incorporated for sponsoring the show. As you know, you can see all the shows on their website, allcountyhealthcare.com, and also on their Facebook Live page as well. So without further ado, I want to get right to it. I want to welcome Dr. Thomas Rockland. He's an internist or internal medicine. Dr. Rockland, welcome to the program. How are you doing this evening?
Thank you very much, and I'm doing fine.
Thank you, and thanks for, like I said, taking the drive to Boca Raton to have you, so we could have you in studio this evening. As I was saying in the green room, I'm always fascinated by internists or internal medicine doctors because they treat so many different ailments. And I actually saw that you just gave a lecture on the heart. And, you know, we don't always think of that, I think, the general public, as ways our internist or internal medicine can help with the heart. So tell us a little bit about the lecture you just gave for those of us that weren't there, and how we can stay young at heart, how the population can.
Okay, so I was asked to speak about being and staying young at heart, and I approached this from two different perspectives. The first was a life attitude, an approach to life, and I think that can be best summarized by the maxim, never stop learning. So we think of kids and how they have an amazing capacity and ability to learn throughout their lives, and to, for example, languages. And as we age, adults tend to lose some of those qualities and those skills, and to kind of narrow our lives, to become more sedentary, and to stop growing and learning as much. So one approach was to keep on learning, and as a way of staying young at heart. The other approach is related, and that is to remain kind of flexible, not only in our mind, but in our body too. And when parts of our body become more stiff, let's say, and if we're talking about the heart, then I'm talking about the arteries of the heart, the coronary arteries, they can become diseased, and that's called atherosclerosis, or hardening of the arteries. And we can't always prevent all of that, but some things we can do to prevent that have to do with living a healthy lifestyle, trying to not get high blood pressure, not get diabetes, not have high cholesterol, etc. That was the general approach.
That's great. Now, that was a great point, because the stiffening of the arteries, I didn't realize until just recently, actually this weekend. I actually saw human heart and lungs at Science Museum here in Fort Lauderdale, and I was amazed to see the valves and the heart itself. I had never seen one before, but yeah, once those arteries and veins, that stiffening occurs, can that be reversed at all with lifestyle changes, or once you have, I won't try to say that word that you said.
Atherosclerosis.
Thank you. Once you have that, can it be reversed by making some changes in lifestyle?
It can certainly be halted, to prevent further progression, and to some degree it can be reversed to what degree is a complicated subject, but it's never too late to adopt healthy habits, healthy lifestyles, to stop smoking, etc. Far better than halting a disease once it's ongoing is to try to prevent it in the first place.
And that goes to my next question. Preventative medicine, boy, 15, 20 years ago, I never heard that term, but now it's prevention is the key to a healthier existence in a way. We talk to our internists and family medicine physicians now, and we're told we have to see them a number of times a year, and I'll ask you about that in a second. But how can an internist help with keeping an individual cardiovascular system healthy? Are there tests that you can do on a regular basis? Obviously you can talk to us about maybe the Mediterranean diet or losing weight. Like in my case, obviously, we all know I got to lose some weight, definitely, because over time it's going to catch up with me. That's one of the factors, though. Is that how an internist can help to kind of monitor and help to build a plan with the patient?
Right. So I think a good doctor can help patients in different ways. And one way, I think, is to be a partner or to partner with the patient.
Okay.
And to play the role of navigator, let's say, and kind of truth teller as well, and to point out things that a certain patient is doing, not doing, that might not be good for his or her health. And that goes along. That speaks to prevention as well. And then there's lots of testing to do, blood work and other cardiovascular testing, not all of which an internist like myself would do. Sometimes a cardiologist would be involved.
Now we're here with Dr. Thomas Rockland. He's a general internal medicine physician. He's with NYU Langone Medical Associates, their division of general internal medicine. It's the faculty group practice in West Palm Beach. I'm going to give out the number a few times during the program, but it's easy to remember, 561-365-3000. Now, I started out the program saying you're on staff at Good Samaritan Medical Center. So is your office right there on the campus of Good Sam, right there?
It's not. It's about a mile south. It's at the eastern end of Clematis Street, and I can see the Intercoastal from the office.
Boy, you're in an awesome area right
really
there.
Nice. Yeah.
I'd like to visit your office just to see the view.
You're welcome.
Now, talk to us a little bit about, because some of the viewers and listeners may be a little thrown off by NYU Langone Medical Associates, but I've read in the news recently, is there a partnership between the hospital and NYU Langone? Is that what brought you into this area?
I don't think there's really a partnership. There's an active and evolving relationship.
Nice.
NYU, I think on its own, wanted to develop a presence in South Florida, in large part because it realized that thousands of its patients who are seen in New York also spend months down here. And they wanted to give them the excellent medical care that NYU in New York is known for, and also to provide continuity of care. And a great example of that is that we operate on the same electronic medical record, so that if a patient sees me in West Palm Beach and I write a note for the chart, their doctor in New York can see what I did, tests I ordered, and it's really improves quality of care for those folks who live in both places.
I was mentioning in the green room, one of the doctors who watches this program, Dr. Jonathan Vafai, cardiologist in Delray Beach with the South Florida Heart Institute, and give him a little shout out there he's been on the program a few times. He went to NYU Langone, and we have a few others. Where did you do your medical school education and training?
I trained at Albert Einstein College of Medicine in the Bronx, New York.
Nice.
And then I did residency at the University of Connecticut in Hartford, Connecticut.
Oh, fantastic. I've been up there a few times, as well as the Bronx, so that's really neat. Well, we're glad to have you down here, and I want to get back into the questions I kind of went off there for a second, but I wanted to explain NYU Langone and the connection there. So I wanted to ask you, why is diet so important, being healthy, and kind of throw this on to the end of it? We're hearing a lot about the Mediterranean diet. As an internist, is it something that you, in a way, prescribe for your patients?
Mm-hmm. I mean, diet is important on a number of different levels. The one that comes to my mind first is just its relationship to weight. To turn that around a little bit, people say, how do you lose weight? And the main answer is the primary answer is to decrease calories. So it's a little less important in terms of weight loss what specific diet you might be using than just decreasing calories no matter what you're eating. That said, the Mediterranean diet is considered a very healthy diet, and I concur that it is. But it's also just kind of common sense and limiting things that most of us know are not that great for us, like red meat and junk food and sweets, moderate milk products, and then more fish, whole grains, fruits, vegetables, nuts, healthy oils like olive oil.
And when you say fish, I've heard salmon and whitefish are probably the best to eat.
I know salmon has healthy fats, and whitefish I'm a little less sure about, but you're probably right.
Okay. Do you what do you do to stay healthy, keep your diet? Because obviously you're in great shape as a doctor. I mean, we can tell by just looking at you. I mean,
well, I think I would be lying to you if I said I was in great shape. I'm relatively thin, but some of that's just genetics, and I try to keep active, but I should be more active for sure. And I try to eat. I pay attention to what I eat, even when I don't eat as well as I wish I did. I'm paying attention. I'm reading labels. I'm looking at calories to a degree. And although I fail periodically, like everybody else does, at least it's in my mind that I know what I should be doing.
That's a good point. We're here with Dr. Thomas Rockland. He is an internal medicine physician with NYU Langone Medical Associates in West Palm Beach. One more question before we take a quick break. You mentioned genetics there, and I'm kind of tying it into something else you said a little earlier, electronic health records. It's important to know the history of the individual and, I guess, their ancestry as well, a little bit dating, to their mother and father, maybe even grandmother and grandfather if they have that info. So how important is genetics in taking care of a patient? Is that something that you look at? Obviously, they ask a lot of questions. I remember when I first saw an internist, has your mom had cancer? Has your dad had cancer? That kind of thing. Has your heart disease? Does it run in your family?
Right. So it's a common question referring to any specific illness or disease. Is there a genetic component? And my answer these days, it's only it's a kind of a loose answer, but my answer is everything is genetic. It's just a question of how much. Some things are highly genetic, and some things are less highly genetic. So, and some things we don't always know the exact contribution of genetics. However, if I'm seeing something, let's say we're talking about heart disease, and that person's father and grandfather had heart attacks at a younger age, then I'm going to assume there's some genetic component there that would put that individual at a different risk than somebody who doesn't have that.
Dr. Rockland, hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break, and on the other side, I'm going to ask Dr. Rockland about how often should we be seeing an internist on the You and Your Doctor show.
All County Healthcare, Inc. is locally owned and operated, serving the Tri-County area, Palm Beach, Dade, and Broward counties for the last 25 years. The practice of medicine is changing dramatically. All County Healthcare, Inc. still does it the old-fashioned way, where our nurses and healthcare professionals come into your home to service your medical needs, providing you the fastest and best care possible. For more information, call 954-717-7027. And remember, Medicare Home Care is covered by Part A of Medicare with no out-of-pocket cost to you. It's your decision, and only your decision, on what healthcare agency you use. Call today. All County Home Health Care, Inc. at 954-717-7027. License 200999096. You are listening to You and Your Doctor, Living Longer and Healthier. an informative show that helps you find answers to questions you always wanted to ask but did not have that somebody that could make a difference in your life. Call into the show if you have a question at 888-565-1470, and we will put you on the air to inform all our listeners. Now, back to our show.
And we're back on the You and Your Doctor show with Dr. Thomas Rockland, internist at NYU Langone Medical Associates Division of General Internal Medicine in West Palm Beach. He's also on staff at Good Samaritan Medical Center. I'll give out the info at the end of the show. Now, my tease before the break, how often should we be seeing an internist? Does that vary for everyone? And if it does, can you kind of generalize it, I guess?
You're right. It does vary. To generalize, I think if you're above the age of 50, it's probably a pretty reasonable idea to see a doctor more or less every year. Below the age, and if you're a child or still growing, let's say until 18 or 20, 21, it's a good idea to see a doctor very regularly, if not every year. So between 21 and 49, it varies, and a lot of guidelines say every 1 to 3 years, which is, of course, reasonable. If you have medical problems, let's say diabetes or something, then it's going to be a lot more than that to adequately follow up. So if you're healthy and don't have much stuff going on, you can spread it out, and if you have other things, then more frequently.
You mentioned diabetes. Now, even before diabetes, there's a pre-diabetes, and I know that's something that internists look for on a regular basis. Can you tell us the difference between pre-diabetes and diabetes, and then go into it? There's a type 1 and a type 2, and I even read about it the other day. I was writing this story, and it was this odd type of diabetes I'd never heard of. I shouldn't say odd, but it was one that I'd never heard of. Mm-hmm. So there's all types of different of diabetes, and there's a pre, and there's a 1 and a 2.
Right. So I guess one way to approach that is to say is to describe what diabetes itself is, or how you diagnose it, and at least by the numbers, a diagnosis of diabetes is a blood sugar fasting that is on an empty stomach, and usually on more than one occasion, of above 126. There's other ways to test sugar too. There's a very important test called the hemoglobin A1C, and the number for that is to diagnose diabetes is above 6.5. So below 126 and below 6.5, but above normal, which for fasting blood sugar would be 100. That's the pre-diabetes range, and it's different things. One thing that it most definitely is a state of being at high risk for going on to develop diabetes. And there are cardiovascular or vascular blood vessel processes, like the one I mentioned at the beginning of the show, atherosclerosis or hardening of the arteries, that having diabetes increases the risk of. Unfortunately, there are also similar risks, maybe less pronounced, in the pre-diabetic range. So it's not a totally asymptomatic state of affairs. It's concerning in and of itself.
And yeah, diabetes, we've had a lot of doctors on the program, can bring on a whole different type of other ailments. So if it's something that can be prevented, it's something to be taken seriously and see an internist or family medicine physician on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
Because you can monitor those levels by reading the blood draw that has been taken of the patients. Mm-hmm. And that's something that you had all those numbers ready. I'm trying to jot them down in time, but you had them ready.
I'll tell you after the
That's
show.
why it's important, to stay under those numbers. Now, I'm a journalist, and another thing that's come up recently, I had a pitch to do a story on a fatty liver, and I had never even heard of the term fatty liver, and that can be an issue as well. And does that tie into diabetes, or is that just something that comes along with, I guess, obesity or maybe even alcoholism?
Yeah, there's an alcoholic or alcohol-related fatty liver, which is its own thing, and then there's non-alcoholic fatty liver. It's a metabolic disorder where there's increasing amount of fat cells in the liver. There's something called metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is a constellation of medical problems such as high blood pressure, high cholesterol, typically with being overweight and specifically with kind of what's called central obesity, which is what a lot of us have around the stomach. And I'm forgetting one or two things that together increase one's risk of future cardiovascular disease, be it heart attack or stroke, those kind of things. Fatty liver can be looked at as the liver variety of metabolic syndrome. So they're all connected. And if I were to put one thing in the center of it, I would put overweightness, if that's a word. Not that everybody who's overweight has it, and not that everybody who's overweight is kind of unhealthy. That's not true. But if you are overweight, you're more likely to also have some of these other medical issues.
We have a lot of bariatric surgeons on the program, and they always start with body mass index. That's something that they're always looking to see if the body mass index is a certain comorbidity, or it could lead to a certain comorbidity. They talk about there's only patients that are over this range would be a candidate for bariatric surgery, and then some people can be too high of a range and they can't even be a candidate. They have to lose weight beforehand just to get into that range to be considered for the surgery. And I had never known that, and then it goes through a whole they look at the diet and they work with the patient about the diet. So that kind of amazed me as well. And I just thought I'd ask that fatty liver question because in the general public, I don't think that's a question we get to ask very often.
Right.
So thanks for explaining that. Now, let's talk a little bit about how an internist can help someone with quality of life in terms of their day-to-day activities, in terms of the brain. And the reason I want to talk about this is it seems like in this country there's a lot of talk about depression, whether it's caused by, environments, stressful environments, or even drug abuse or alcoholism, or even any type of other factors. Now, can an internist help in terms of depression to help get someone what I'm getting to is get someone put on to a certain medicine that may help for a little while, or prescription that may help for a little while, and then also be able to, if that person starts doing well, take them off in terms of like an antidepressant?
Sure. Medicine is not always the optimum treatment for depression. Sometimes psychotherapy, counseling is better, or at least
exercise too, right?
Exercise is
because pumps the endorphins?
And, right, yeah.
You're right.
Exercise is really good for almost everything. But that said, internists prescribe antidepressant medicines frequently. I certainly do, and I feel pretty skilled at it. I'm not a psychiatrist. They would be considered the specialist in that area. But the reality is that there's probably not enough psychiatrists around, and that primary care doctors do the majority of the prescribing of antidepressants.
So you're doing a lot of research on the latest in medicines, I guess, as well. Keeping up.
Sure, yeah.
You
That
have
in
to
every other field, yeah.
And now let me ask you a question I always get after the shows is David, was he or she board certified? Are you board certified?
Yes.
Oh, nice. So is that the American Board of Internal Medicine?
Well, I wasn't going to mention this, but I'm actually a family doctor.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what that is? It's
yeah.
So it's like the old GP. When I was trained,
General practitioner.
General practitioner.
I do know that.
So I was trained to care for pretty much everybody across the lifespan, from obstetrics, newborns, all the way up to geriatrics. I call myself an internist because for most of the last 20 years, most of my practice, I've been really seeing predominantly, if not only, adults.
Okay.
So I forget your question now.
So technically you can see...
board certified.
Board certified.
So I am board certified, but I'm board certified in family practice.
Okay. And now we always have to ask the question, too. That's something that you have to keep up with. You have to take boards a certain number of years and pass them to be able to say that you're certified by the American Board of Family Medicine.
That's correct. Right. It's either 7 or 10 years. I think it could be either, depending on other factors.
Wow. That's just amazing that doctors can keep up with all that's going on. Huge patient base, because you're primary care. You must have a pretty large patient base, I imagine.
Sure. Well, I mean, the idea is to keep up because medicine and science and medicine change so rapidly that if you're not constantly learning, gets back to something I said earlier in the show about keeping young at heart or young in the mind. But we are by necessity have to do that to always be learning. Otherwise, things that we thought are true aren't as true anymore based on new research.
And I love the title of your lecture, Young at Heart. As I said, I was a journalist, a newspaper reporter for years, and we used to do a section every year called Young at Heart, and it was people that, mostly octogenarians, people in their 80s, that would do stuff to keep their quality of life at a higher level. Scuba diving if they could, kayaking, and I'd get these amazing stories every year, so that's a great name for a lecture. So I'd like to see that. If you do it again, you'll have to send me an email if you do it again.
Okay.
We have less than 2 minutes, so I'll kind of go into the speed round. What are your hobbies and passions in life outside of medicine?
Well, I am married. I've been married for 25 years, and we have
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. We have 5 children, and I've been kept very busy, at home. I love to read. I read fiction and a lot of history. I used to love playing basketball. I guess I still love playing basketball, but my rheumatologist, Dr. Michael Schweitz, you know him?
I know the name. I haven't had him on the air yet, though.
He's a good man.
Jotting it down.
I saw him for various aches and pains, not including my hip, but he, in the process of evaluating me, told me that I have arthritis of my hip and I should stop playing basketball. So I decided to heed his sensible advice.
Do you ever still have a favorite college and NBA team for basketball?
The Knicks.
The Knicks?
I'm somewhat ashamed to admit. But
Oh, well, hey, they had a great run. They used to beat my Miami Heat up all the time in the late 90s. And, man,
Those
Charles
were the days.
Oakley, Ewing.
Right.
Man, I just saw a picture of Charles Oakley. He looked good. He was completely gray, but he looked good. Well, it's hard to believe we've already, shot through a half hour here, but I'd love to have you back on the program in the future if you'd like, and you can talk family medicine, internal medicine, whatever you like. Thank you, Dr. Thomas Rockland, NYU Langone Medical Associates in West Palm Beach, 561-365-3000. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
And have a good night, South Florida.
Thank you for letting us share with you a longer and healthier lifestyle. If you have a doctor or are a doctor and wish to be on the show, call AMP2 TV at 866-244-5422, and we will put you on the air as soon as possible. Tune in next week for more information on living longer and having a healthier life. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not